Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good,
Awesome. Thank you for doing this.
of course.
Yeah, so you wrote a research article on ferritin, right, and running performance. Jen, so first off, tell me about you and what got you into wanting to do that research article, actually.
So I feel like it's been my lifelong, I don't know, battle, I
Mm,
guess, personally.
okay.
So my freshman year in college was probably one of the first years that I had a clinical diagnosis of a ferritin of 6.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, it was
What?
pretty bad, but it's actually not that uncommon.
Oh my
And
God.
so I've heard so many stories of that, and actually, it almost became like a locker room competition to
Mhm.
see who was actually going to be the lowest,
Oh my
with
God.
almost like no idea of how to repair this.
Mm.
And so I think that's when I probably first started tracking my numbers. Um, and so at the time, I'm studying exercise science, and all of my coursework, even some of the papers that I did in my English course was, geared towards exercise science and writing papers
Mhm.
in exercise science.
Mhm.
Um, Really just trying to dig into what's normal and what's optimal.
Mhm. Okay.
And that sort of has been I guess, my 34 years of really trying to
Mhm.
figure this out. And through a lot of personal trial and error, came up with the research that I formulated.
Wow.
So,
So since freshman year of college, how fast were you able to resolve this once you saw that your numbers were low? Did it take
oh,
time or like what was that like?
honestly, this really hasn't been resolved until the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years, not even, maybe even within
Oh
like
my
the last
gosh.
2 years. And I'm 51. So
Mhm.
I've literally been battling with anemia, despite taking iron supplements and um, given the same response from doctors that most athletes are given. Well, you're in the normal range. Let's check your hemoglobin. Oh, let's check your hormone panel and
Mhm.
see how that is.
Yeah.
And the story seems to pretty much be the same for everyone.
So people probably like, what is ferritin, by the way? So people know what iron
Sure,
is, right?
sure.
Can you describe basically what ferritin is?
So ferritin is basically your iron warehouse. It's where your body stores your iron reserves. And iron is needed to bind to oxygen to transport it to all of your cellular tissues.
Mhm.
So while you might have iron and oxygen floating in your blood, when you exercise, your body really needs to rely on its reserve, which is your
Mhm.
ferritin.
Okay.
And so if you have a low ferritin, when you call in the troops, there's
Mhm.
no one there,
Okay. So it's the stores.
the stores.
Okay. And what causes these numbers to drop? Why are some people more prone to having these low numbers? And a lot of athletes, they seem to be fine. So why are
Sure.
some people lower than others?
I think what it really comes down to is that every athlete is vulnerable to lower iron. Maybe some sort of get by and think this is my normal, or maybe they don't
Mhm.
even know what their ferritin is.
Yeah.
And they think that their performances are just, those are my performances. Like, I'm
Mhm.
proud of these, and this is what I have. Um, I think the biggest thing is that with running, with every foot strike, you're breaking red blood cells. And so your body has to replace those red blood cells. So an athlete has a much higher turnover rate of red blood cells, which is great because that means that, our blood is always renewing itself. It's
Mhm.
healthy. I mean, that creates like, good positive energy in your body. You don't have like these old, like, shrivelly red blood cells running around through your body, right? You have these
Yeah.
new fresh guys
Mm-hmm.
always.
Mm-hmm.
But you need ferritin in order to replace those red blood cells, right? So if it gets really bad, obviously, that's when your hemoglobin numbers decline. And that's when a doctor might say, oh, you're anemic. But long before that happened, you still feel the effects of it, despite having normal labs. And I think that's where the disconnect is that you have normal labs, but you feel less than normal. Other places you might lose it would be you can lose it through sweat. And
Interesting.
then obviously digestive issues, right? So if, runners tend to have pretty quick metabolism, um, we tend to eliminate on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And so things can definitely move a lot faster through the GI system.
Okay.
And iron takes time to absorb, right? So yeah, so I think, there's quite a few reasons why it could be lower.
And what are the feelings when you have low ferritin? What does the runner typically feel when they're dealing with
Right.
runners?
So, I mean, I think it really is event dependent. Let's take a 5K for cross country, for example, which is when I think a lot of high school runners, it tends to, that's where it draws the flags. Like, why is this athlete such a great athlete, but,
Mm-hmm.
they can't compete in a 5K? So an example of that would be, say the athlete is a good miler, maybe they're a good half miler,
Mm-hmm.
and but when it comes to the cross country 5K, despite the fact that they have good mileage for a high school runner, they're running, say, 20 minutes in a 5K, which is good. It's a
Right.
good time, right? But it doesn't really line up with what they can do in a mile or a
Mm-hmm.
half mile.
Mm-hmm.
And what you will, if you ask the athlete, well, where do you feel like it falls apart? Every single athlete says it falls apart at mile 2.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And the reason for that is not training, it's not a lack of aerobic fitness. At the 2 mile mark is when an athlete's body demands more oxygen. Like you actually need so much more oxygen in order to maintain that pace that felt pretty comfortable for the first two
Mhm.
miles. Like it's not like they were struggling for 2 miles and then fell off. They were feeling great and then
Yeah.
fall off,
Yeah.
right? And then coaches are like, oh, this is psychological, or we need more endurance work, which again, this only exacerbates the problem because it can become a psychological problem, meaning that they think that they're a failure and that they can't
Yeah.
do this. And then that logic sort of repeats in their mind
Mhm.
every time they toe the line for a 5K, when in reality, it's probably something more physiological. In an 800 meters, which is my primary event, where an athlete might see it would be at about the 500-meter mark. So they're running great. They come through the 400, the next 100, they're coasting, and then
Mhm.
all of a sudden it's like their body puts on the brakes.
Mhm.
And there's a little bit of misconception too about percentage of anaerobic and aerobic for the 800. We kept hearing for years and years and years that it's 60-40, 60% aerobic, 40% anaerobic. It's been
Mhm.
the standard numbers that have been used. But that was actually based on male numbers, not female numbers. The research lately actually indicates that females are probably more likely 70% aerobic and 30% anaerobic.
Dang.
So
Mhm.
maybe part of it is the amount of time that you're running.
Mhm.
If a male is running a 150 versus a female running 2 minutes and 15 seconds,
Mhm.
obviously you're running longer for a longer period of time, it does
Mhm.
become more aerobic. So part of it is time dependent, but it's also physiology dependent too, because they have more blood than we
Mhm.
have.
Right.
Their whole cardiovascular system, their lungs, their heart, it's larger, more robust than the female anatomy. So,
Interesting.
it's not just the amount of time that they're running for.
Interesting. And you said it can be when you're going back to the let's say the high school athlete example, it can become a vicious cycle
Sure.
because they could feel like they're out of shape and the coach might think, oh, you need more endurance. And it becomes this cycle. So you're
Sure.
actually making yourself worse when,
Yeah.
oh, that's a nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah. And now if they had proper ferritin, the
Hmm.
change in that becomes they become a 20-minute 5K runner. They suddenly become an 18-minute and 30-second
I
5K
believe it.
runner.
I
Like
believe
it's
that.
literally that significant.
Yeah, I believe that. I mean, I'm a quarter sprinter. I run the 400 and I even feel it. So my ferritin's a 28 right now. And
Right.
I'm not recovering very well at all. I mean, my last workout was like almost a week ago and my legs are still pretty shot from
Yeah.
it, which is abnormal. And I'd be running workouts and it feels like my body's lead, like
Yeah.
I can't move like cement.
Exactly.
And I hit a
Absolutely.
wall, just a
Yep.
complete wall. I'll run
Yep.
like a 44 300, a 46 300, and then by the third one, it's like a 56, and I
Yeah.
can't move. I no longer can
Yeah.
move, and it's very frustrating because I'm
Yeah.
TKO'd for like a week.
Hmm.
So I'm actually in the
I'm
middle of
actually
5 iron infusions.
right.
Yeah.
So later this week, I'm actually going to report on my blog again because everyone thinks that ferritin is just an endurance runner problem. But the reality is it's a sprinter problem as well because not so much that the oxygen transporting for energy, but
Hmm.
you but in the muscle cells themselves,
Hmm.
the tissue itself, your body has ferritin and is storing oxygen. And so for the sprinter, they rely on that oxygen to help buffer the
Yeah.
lactic acid
Yeah.
during the workouts. So if you have low ferritin and you're a sprinter, you're definitely leaving something, on the sidelines because,
Mhm.
your body isn't able to metabolize things if it was not iron deficient.
It's very interesting. You wouldn't think that for sprinters, but it becomes an issue buffering the wastes.
Exactly.
That's very interesting. I did not know that. How long could it take for people to recover with these issues? I guess it depends on what protocols you take, which we'll get into later because I know you have recommendations on that. But let me just rewind for a second. You mentioned low normal. So, what numbers? I mean, a lot of athletes have these low normals. What is ideal for runners to have
Right.
before we go into
So,
protocols?
yeah. So the low normal on LabWorks, it really depends on the lab corp that runs the blood draw.
Hmm.
But you will see things even as low as 15 as being in a normal range. A lot of them have moved it or shifted it to 20 as being the normal range. But again, this is potentially normal for someone who's sedentary, not for an athlete. But I can tell you that, my teenage daughter is a retired ballerina. And her current ferritin is 40, and she can still feel winded walking up the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think even 40 is all that normal. Um, I think a much higher ferritin um, is necessary even for the everyday person because it's not just the carrying the oxygen. I mean, has so many other functions having oxygen present for metabolism, right? Metabolism for health, for your liver health, for cellular respiration, like for everything, right? So like it's not just, in my opinion, it's not just a runner's problem. I think it's a much bigger issue than that. So when we talk about like, what is someone striving for? I mean, for a long time, I thought 60, that'll be a good number for me. And coming from 60 is a huge improvement, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is that even at 60, I was still suffered from bone stress injuries, right? I had two in 2018, and everyone was like, "Oh, you're not eating enough, you're training too hard." And I had been training the same volume like almost my entire life. I've never been a high mileage runner. The max mileage that I've ever done in a week, and I probably only stayed there for a week or two, was 50 miles a week. This is not high mileage, folks. Like this is not. That's like just normal training volume. It wasn't my sleep. I'm still getting, 8 hours, 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. So
Mhm.
it's not that I'm sleep deprived. Okay, so Why am I having bone stress injuries? Why is my hormone panel just in shambles?
Mhm.
Like my DHEAS is just like so low,
Mhm.
which again helps with recovery, right? So at 60, I was still not recovering. My body was still in fight or flight, right?
Mhm.
So then I start to get my numbers up over 100. This is in like the last 2 years. And now suddenly I can run a half marathon as a long run in an hour and 22 minutes,
That's
just
insane.
out for a long run,
Oh
which
my
is
God.
outstanding as a middle
Yeah.
distance runner, an
And what
800
number
meter
did you wind
runner.
up getting? What number did you wind up
So
getting?
at that time, it was about 119. Um,
119.
yeah.
And this, when it was really low for you, you had a whole bunch of hormonal issues then taking place
Hmm.
too. So it was
Yep.
affecting a whole bunch of other systems.
Yep.
That is wild how it can affect all those things.
Yeah. And so then I thought, okay, well, I'm over 100 now. Like I could probably stop here and maybe I'll start taking my iron supplement like every other day. And in 3 months' time, when I went back to get it, it was back down another 20 points. So it was back down to 100.
Oh,
So
it
I'm like,
dropped
okay,
that
well, this is
quickly?
clearly not working, right? So I went back to taking it every single day, and now I have a ferritin of 153.
Oh my gosh. I'm jealous.
I know.
And I
But I would
haven't.
say though, this climb from 60 to 153 would probably took me about 3 years to get there.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
So,
gosh. That is so crazy. Yeah, I mean, I was taking the supplements. I had a few iron infusions earlier, and then I went to the supplements only at night, taking them at night. And I got my blood work done again, and they dropped even lower because I don't think my body's absorbing the iron
right,
supplement. So now I'm back
right,
doing iron infusions. But we
sure.
are going to get into what's affecting absorption too in a moment. I know you mentioned a hormone. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Hepcidin. Am I saying that right?
Yeah,
We'll go over that because there's probably reasons why we're not absorbing the iron,
right.
right? Can you tell me a little bit about that? What are ways that we can absorb iron better? What's
Mhm.
affecting it?
Sure. So the hormone hepcidin is produced by the liver, and it tends to peak for about 3 to 6 hours after intense exercise. So, it's interesting because we're told after exercise, go eat a protein meal, and so a lot of us are thinking, okay, I'm going to have this beautiful grass-fed steak,
Mhm.
and all of this stuff, which is great. And still the protein and other nutrients are fantastic. So I'm not saying don't do that, but
Yeah.
it's interesting that if you time that meal specific to helping your iron and so forth within 3 to 6 hours after an intense exercise, it just gets stuck in your stomach. So you'll hear people say, oh, I was taking my iron supplements and I feel constipated. And it's like, no, yeah, exactly. It's literally getting stuck in your GI tract because it can't be absorbed, right? It's having absorption issues. So for me, um, my iron didn't actually even climb to 60 until I started taking a particular supplement,
Mhm.
which I've been using for about 10 years now, which is the Thorn. It's now called Advanced Iron Complex,
Mhm.
but it used to be called Ferrisorb. And I do take that right before bed. But really, it's going to matter like if your workout ends at 7 o'clock at night, taking it before bed is probably not the right timing for you.
Mhm.
If you're a high schooler though, and your workout is at like 3 or 4 o'clock, by the
Mhm.
time they go to bed at 10 or 11, they would be fine to take it before bed.
Mhm.
Because, it's 3 to 6 hours. It's hard to know exactly because I'm sure it's an individual base and how
Yeah.
much inflammation you carry. But, obviously bedtime would be the best because you also have no food interactions. You're not drinking coffee while you sleep. You're not, having a glass of milk while you sleep.
Mhm.
So you don't also have foods that can sort of block the absorption as well. But if you're working out at 7 o'clock at night, say, you're a 9 to 5er and you have a steady job and you're going to practice for yourself at like
Mhm.
7 o'clock at night, then your best time probably would be in the morning, and you
Mhm.
just focus on like protein type of breakfast in the morning and save any dairy and I know caffeine is a big one for runners too, but yeah,
Mhm.
you would have to take your iron first thing in the morning and delay your coffee by about 2 hours, which for me is not how I start my morning.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe have your breakfast and then 2 hours later take your iron supplement. Like
Mhm.
you just have to find a better timing. Again, I think the exercise is probably the hardest one.
Mhm.
Um, because if hepcidin is blocking the absorption, then it really doesn't matter the foods that you're eating. It's never going to get there.
Okay, so you want to have the iron not 3 to 6, after 3 to 6 hours you trained, right? Because
Yeah.
that hormone will be high and it's going to affect absorption. So you're better off also having iron when empty stomach so you can absorb it.
I think empty is good. I
Mhm.
mean, I probably have dinner around 7 o'clock at night,
Mhm.
and I'll take my iron at 10 when I go to bed.
Oh, okay, it's
So
like
it's been a
4.
few hours.
Okay.
So yeah.
And then take it with vitamin C or
So that's why I really like the Thorn
Mhm.
supplement, because it actually, I'm gonna pull up my list here.
Mhm.
Um, So Thorn has C, B6, B12, folate. It's 36 milligrams of iron bisglycinate. And so that combination has
Mhm.
been what's allowed me to absorb it. So like back in college, for example, they used to have me take ferrous gluconate, which is not bisglycinate. It's a chelated iron, I think
Okay.
is what it was called. Like it's a more of like a mineral iron, and I would take it with a big glass of orange juice, right? And my iron was 6 and I could not get it above 20.
Mhm. And
Like
it was
I was
just not
stuck.
budging even through
Nope,
consistency. Oh, that's horrible.
nope.
Yeah.
And it did cause a lot of constipation too.
Mm.
I do find that there may be other supplements out there.
Mhm.
I've been successful with this one, so I haven't tried others. I would definitely be curious to hear other people's stories and what has worked for them as far as supplementation.
Mhm.
But again, you want to make sure that you have the necessary, you know, buddy system of minerals and vitamins to help absorb the iron. And I like that it's all just in one pill, and it's a capsule, so I don't taste anything when it goes down. I've heard liquid irons taste like blood. That can't be pleasant. So it just, you
Yeah,
know, I think it's a little bit preference, but just making sure that you have those cofactors so you can absorb it properly.
definitely. I do have that brand. I think I have to do better taking it. I think I would take it at night after I train. And so I think I have to start taking that supplement in the morning
Yeah.
for better absorption. I also read last night on PubMed that D3 can help suppress that hepticin hormone
hmm
expression. Are you aware of anything of that? D3 helping with that at all? I just read that last night.
Um, no, I haven't read that article yet. I'm
Okay.
definitely curious to read that. But this gets into sort of the relationship too with calcium, because we're saying like take your iron away from calcium,
Mhm.
and also knowing that those with low ferritin tend to be more prone to bone stress injuries. So I also take a calcium supplement, which does have D3 and K1 and potassium, I believe.
Mhm.
So the one that I use is called Vitamin Code Bone Builder. And so I take that one in the morning because I take my iron at night.
Mhm.
And it's funny because I've played with that one as well, where I stop taking it, and then I get my labs drawn, and my calcium levels are at the bottom end
Interesting.
of the range, right? So,
Mhm.
so again. probably a little bit of absorption issues, and how my body processes everything. So I think it's just important for people to like pay attention to that.
Hmm.
But obviously, vitamin D is really important. You think, oh, okay, well, I'm a runner. I get plenty of vitamin D. I go outside. Well, I tend to do my runs earlier in the morning when the
Hmm.
sun isn't super high or strong. It's not like I'm working out in prime sun hours. I try to
Hmm.
avoid that because I have, very fair skin and I don't want to get sunburned. And
Hmm.
or if I am training and it's super sunny, I'll wear protective clothing. So like it's
Yeah.
right. So
Hmm.
I think, when we're talking about supplements, I don't think everything needs to be a supplement. We do try to get things from food in nature, of
Hmm.
course, but an athlete's body needs more of those items in particular. So maybe the rest of your vitamins, because you have a good, foundation in your diet, you're eating lots of different things.
Hmm.
Um, but some of the things we need more of, more than the regular person. And you might not be able
Absolutely.
to get it in the normal number of calories that you're eating.
Hmm. Okay. That makes sense. And you said you separated those supplements. You said you would take the calcium and the other vitamins in the morning and the iron at night for you
Yeah,
because the calcium would affect the iron. Is that right?
it would.
Oh,
Yep,
okay. Interesting. There's just a lot of things getting in the way
there
of,
definitely are. Yeah.
I'm like, it's a lot. So in a perfect picture, somebody has low iron, what's the best protocol summarized? Somebody watching, I have low iron, what would be in a summarized easy for them to take away?
Well, I think the first thing is always starting with blood work, right?
Mhm.
There are definitely like very few people that have the DNA for hemochromatosis, which is really high iron. So I would never recommend that someone just start taking iron. You should know what your numbers are and start tracking them. People often ask me, well, how often do you get your ferritin checked? And so I'm a three-season athlete. So I run cross country, indoor and outdoor track.
Mhm.
I have since the eighth grade. And I
Mhm.
think for me, I like to know what it is at the beginning of the season,
Mhm.
so that like if I can identify at the beginning of, a 12-week period of training
Mhm.
that if my iron isn't where I want it to be, I have time before the championships at the end of the season to make
Mhm.
improvements on that,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Okay.
So I
Yeah,
think
check
that's the
so
important
far.
thing. So, I mean, I know it seems like a lot. In the United States, Quest Laboratory, you can go directly on their website. I think other places do this as well. And you can just order a Ferritin protocol. So, like, I want to say it's around $30.
Mhm.
So, if your doctor, your insurance is saying, no, we're not going to cover this, you can certainly get that test pretty quickly. Um, 3 times a year.
Nice.
Um,
Mhm.
so I think that's an important one. Um, and, if you're at a 20, keep working at it. And once you get to 60, that isn't your, green light to stop taking it.
Mhm.
It means that what you're doing is working. And if it's not working, then you need to really look at maybe even more biochemistry. I also found out years ago that I have probably more robust GI issues. I've never been diagnosed with celiac, but I have
That's what I
many of the symptoms of celiac, and so
Mhm.
my absorption is pretty poor, just because of, potential scarring, potential
Interesting.
just inflammation. So again, timing for me is really,
Mhm.
really important.
Interesting. So you have celiac type symptoms, but wasn't diagnosed with it.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I tried and I went back on gluten and
Yeah.
all the symptoms returned, but they're like, your intestines look great. And I'm like, okay,
Mm,
super. But what I'm hearing now with like the latest research is that both can still be true,
mm.
right? You can
Interesting.
have some normal villi, in your
Mm,
test and still have long-term consequences from celiac. So,
interesting. I mean, I hear gluten's just inflammatory. I don't know if that's applicable to everybody, but I heard gluten's just inflammatory.
sure.
So maybe people are better off just trying to be gluten free. As lame as
I
that
don't know. I mean, it certainly doesn't make life easy.
is.
So, I mean, I guess if it's well tolerated,
Hmm.
encouraging a restrictive diet makes things more complicated for people.
No,
So,
it's true. And it's already tough as it is with this list of how to properly absorb iron. Honestly,
yeah.
it's a lot. Um, yeah, that you hit all my questions, and I hope runners get something out of this. Is there anything you would like to add, Jen?
Um, No, I mean, I think we actually touched on, I had like a couple of frequently asked
Mhm.
questions that I've
Yeah.
received over the last few days. But I think we actually touched on a lot of them. I think, I don't know, the one thing that, I definitely want to add is that like oftentimes, doctors are there to diagnose and treat disease. They're not necessarily looking for how to optimize someone's performance. So I mean, I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
And, my research just grew out of being frustrated with, my training going well and then having a failing performance and, being able to track a lot of things with, Garmin and Apple Watches
Yeah.
and being able to see it physically on paper
Mm,
of what's happening in my body during certain parts of my races.
mm,
And then having the physiological data, the blood work that lines up with all of that. So I think people need to sort of educate themselves on what, their biomarkers are. And use that as a basis for trying to get to optimal, and not just settle for normal. Yeah,
right. Yeah, so when you published that article, you had a lot of traction.
I did.
Did a lot of people say they're dealing with this? Or they were
Yes.
just, that's insane.
Um, and
Wow.
I think largely the biggest group of people that commented were parents they were all teenage girls in high school that were struggling with their iron and their performances
Mm,
and not getting anywhere when, they went to the pediatrician.
mm.
And they're like, well, your hemoglobin is fine. Your ferritin, I don't think we need to check that. And we're going to keep that off the list.
Oh
And
my God.
your hormones are fine. And those are all good things. Like having good hemoglobin is great. And having a good hormone panel is also great. But it doesn't change how ferritin makes us feel. I mean, I can remember coming home from practice and just not being able to keep my eyes open. Like I physically just had to rest and lie down. Or
Yeah.
you were talking about, just feeling redlined for, not recovering. Normal people recover in 48 hours, and here you are day 5, and you're like, why do I still feel like trash?
Mm,
Those kinds of things.
yeah.
Because the body, especially for the young athlete, and teenage girls. So teenage girls between the ages of 18 and 22 are in their bone density forming years, right? So their body is trying to fill out how dense their bones are. And they're also trying to be an athlete. And the
Mhm.
body has a really hard time doing both at the same time.
Mm,
So, I mean, I would encourage high schoolers to be patient with their performance
mm,
through those ages of 18 to 22,
mm.
and know that faster, better times are ahead of them, but their focus really should be on their health and well-being. And part of that is having a ferritin to support, you know, just what their natural raw talent is, which is so fun to watch, right?
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
like little cats, like they rest and then
Yeah.
they fly, and it's so much fun to watch. But obviously, if their ferritin is low, they're going to have a hard time recovering from those short bursts of energy. But yeah, just be patient and really focus on that bone density and ferritin numbers so that you can feel good and continue to make gains on your times and performances.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for writing that article because I think it's bringing a lot of awareness to people who are struggling with it or to look into it. So I think it's going to help a lot of people. And I'm going to share your article because it's great and it's very informative and it's about helping athletes. So I appreciate you taking the time out today, Jen, and doing this with me.
Thanks. Yeah, this was
Absolutely.
fun.
Absolutely. I will see you on the track and I'll stay in touch. You there, Jen?
I am still
Yeah.
here.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. Yeah, I'll keep in touch and I'll see you.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.